Been also one of the ministerial leads when it comes to the government's agenda to address the cost of living. The Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, a Liberal, Andrew Furey, is now today calling on your government to pause the increase to the carbon tax slated for April the 1st. Will you consider that?
Listen, I like Premier Furey. I've known him for a long time, but I think we have been very clear that a price on pollution is the right thing to do. It brings more money in the pocket of Canadians. That vision, that approach has been clear from the start. The Prime Minister has been clear. I hear his voice, but I think that, we have a plan to fight climate change. We have been clear with Canadians all along. And honestly, I think that Canadians understand that. The plan is working. It's going to bring more money in the pockets of Canadians. And we're going to continue to do that because you know what? This is an investment in the future. This is an investment that has allowed us also to attract investment in Canada because people see these Canadians are serious about fighting climate change. So I would be happy to engage with Premier Furey. I'll see him soon. But I can tell you we're going to continue to do what's right for the country, not only now, but for the future.
So that's a no. That's a big no. After all that talk, he just keeps going on forever. When he says it puts more money into Canadians' pockets, let's have a look at the document. And this is what happens with Liberals and NDP, and they keep saying the same thing when other people show facts that it's incorrect, and they just keep saying it. And I often wonder, is this getting to be like Karl Marx and that chicken example? Because that's what it just seems like. You just keep saying the information, just keep saying it, even though, and you ignore all facts. This is the analysis document, the third party, saying that the carbon tax actually costs more. And it breaks it down by province. So we'll start with Alberta here. These quintiles, 1 to 5. 1 is the lowest, and we're talking the poorest in Canada, so like under 50,000 a year in Canada. That's the percentile we're talking about here. And each percentile is different by province. When you look at it here, this net cost, this minus 535, you see how they're all negative? I think he's getting it from there, that Canadians get more back. But if you look at the second one, net costs, fiscal and economic impacts, which at the end of the day is more of the bottom line, what it costs. And I'm not sure if some data scientist or someone stuck this in just to show that, and that's the talking point they keep using. Now, each one of these columns is per year, so 2024, and it goes out for 7 years. So this would mean that the second and first quintile, the poorest people in Canada, get a little bit more back per year per family. Even the third is not even that much. The third quintile is not really that much, 200, but it's enough for them to brag that they're getting more. And over here, 1,000 and about $3,000. These are the top. This is Champagne, Philippe, all the Liberals there, everyone, all those politicians talking, and even those experts on the panel, they are the number 5. So on average, $710 is in Alberta. Families pay more, bottom line, the whole province. If I go through Saskatchewan here too, which they don't want to pay, $410. It's the same thing. This is the 623. That's the most they get back. The poorest people, we're talking under $50,000, which no one would disagree that they should get something back. But doing it this way is horrible. Manitoba, same thing. $386 on average every family in Manitoba, and he's the one that wants to stop the increase, and it will keep going up. Over here is Ontario, same thing, $478. Doug Ford needs to step up and say something too. Nova Scotia, $431 on average. Every province, there's no province where it's minus, and I think he's using this fiscal impact only, not the fiscal and economic impact. And I bet there's another one added on top of here that he doesn't want to even show because he's scared to show it. Let's go back to the video.
The Premier's point is that he is not, like you characterize many of your opponents on the carbon tax, against the issue of mitigating climate change, that he takes it very seriously. But at the same time, people in Newfoundland and Labrador and many of the other provinces in which this carbon tax applies are dealing with a high rate of inflation, high interest rates, and he's simply asking your government to pause the increase until interest rates go down, and inflation stabilizes. Why won't you at least consider that? Are you so ideologically wedded to it that you can't listen to the premiers who are saying it is adding to the burden of the cost of living for the people who live in their provinces? The premier's point is that he is not, like you characterize many of your opponents on the carbon tax, against the issue of mitigating climate change, that he takes it very seriously. But at the same time, people in Newfoundland and Labrador and many of the other provinces in which this carbon tax applies are dealing with a high rate of inflation, high interest rates, and he's simply asking your government to pause the increase until interest rates go down and inflation stabilizes.
Listen, I understand the issue around cost of living, Vashi. I've been the one with colleagues who have been fighting all along to make sure that life is more affordable for Canadians. I took on, for example, the grocery sector and the big chains to make sure that people can afford grocery. I keep on that fight. I'm going to even bring that at the G7 meeting that I'm going this evening to make sure that we start seeing competition issues, making sure that life is more affordable. I get that. You know, I come from rural Canada. I know that people talk to me. But at the same time, people that I meet in the street understand that we need also to be fighting climate change, that the price on pollution is the best way. It's been tested to make sure that, we have the right framework to make sure that we drive the right behavior, but at the same time, that we send the money back in the pocket of Canadians. So this is a system that it's working, and Canadians understand that.
I have no idea what he just said. Has food prices come down? I'll ask that question. Have they come down? Because there was inflation, shrinkflation, and I also think now scalation, where the package says it's 800 grams and people measure it and it's 650 grams. Like that comes into play too. Nothing has gone down. I can't even name anything that has gone down. Everything has gone up, and they just keep increasing it more. And like I said, it reminds me of Karl Marx and that chicken. And they say, too, that it's a false story. But maybe that example was just an analogy of what people felt, what they did. And it looks like the Trudeau regime is doing the same thing, that you voted for it. You voted for this. This is it. And they will push it through, even though there's been the pandemic that happened in there and the printing of money and a war in Ukraine that nobody signed up for, and they will still do it. Because if those taxes keep going up, nothing is offsetting it. Absolutely nothing. And what is the end goal of this carbon tax? With 1.3 million people coming into Canada, carbon per person goes up with the 1.3 million people. So nothing is happening. It just keeps going up all the time. And once that news comes out of what Canada's carbon greenhouse gases is, and that it went up, then what? Then what? Let's go back to the video.
Respectfully, Minister, do Canadians actually see that it's working? The Auditor General pointed out that your government has not attached a specific emissions reductions target to the price on carbon, that you have not produced evidence. The NDP Premier of Manitoba said the same thing. The people associated with the provincial NDP in both Saskatchewan and Alberta have raised the same concerns. Now your Liberal colleague is also calling into a question exactly what you're trying to argue. Even the Parliamentary Budget Officer has said when you take into account all the indirect costs, slightly more Canadians are worse off than better off because of the carbon tax. Again, why are you so ideologically wedded to it that you can't just wait until inflation stabilizes and press pause for a moment?
Listen, it's not about ideology. It's about the planet. Vashi, I'd say that the fact that we have a plan to fight climate change has brought billions of investment in this country. People understand, we set ourselves to be the green supply of choice to the world, whether it's green aluminum, green steel, green batteries, green semiconductor. That's what we're known for. This has attracted investment and make sure that, we position Canada as a leader in the world. And decarbonizing industries is a trend. Look in Alberta. We have Heidelberg, for example. We're going to have the first green cement plant in the world. Dow Chemical decided to put their plant in Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta. Why? Because they want to have the greenest polyethylene plant in the world. So that system is working. It's bringing money in the pockets of Canadians. And I think the vast majority of Canadians agree that we need to keep on and fighting climate change. It's the right thing to do for the planet. It's the right thing to do for our kids. And we can do it in a sensible way making sure that we drive the right behavior that gives money back in the pockets of Canadians. I respect my colleagues. I talk with all the premiers in Canada for sure, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we take the right decision for now, but also for the future of this nation.
There's a lot to unpack with that. With the battery plants, if Canada has to pay or Ontario has to pay $20 billion or whatever, like, what's the point? And I see that EV car sales are drastically dropping like a rock. And him bragging about Alberta being that good with green energy, how come when Justin Trudeau flew there, he didn't meet up with Daniel Smith? He sort of flew in, did his little speech in his riding, and just flew back out. He doesn't seem like he's very connected with the provinces at all. And with the investments in Canada, I often wonder too, with the seizing of the bank accounts. And I think after Trudeau did seize the bank accounts, world leaders and world banks were scared beyond belief to say, what are you doing? That they are also scared that if you don't align with Trudeau, he will seize bank accounts still. And even that inquiry came out to challenge Trudeau on it. Nothing was done with it. It was all accepted that it was the right thing to do. And it really goes back to the Charter of Rights and the freedoms, that something is wrong in Canada if Trudeau should be criminally charged for doing that. And I think until that happens, until he's gone, no country or no company will invest. I doubt very much, Philippe, what he's saying is very valid anyways, but let's continue.
Just very quickly, Minister, you're standing in Washington, D.C. Your government has hailed the climate policy of this White House administration as incredibly serious. It is also attracting the investment that you talk about, and it is doing so without a consumer carbon tax. Again, why not consider?
Well, I would say what has been attracting investment in Canada is the talent of our people. It's the ecosystem we have, whether it's the aerospace industry and the natural resources. And I was just in Calgary a few days ago. It's the critical minerals we have and the proximity. Well, listen, I think that, there's different things in the sense they see that we are serious on fighting climate change. But you were asking me broadly, how do we attract investment? Is our people. It's the fact that we have ecosystem, we have the critical mineral, renewable energy, and access to market. And the fact that they see Canada as listen, I was giving you the example of South Carolina. Imagine the cars manufactured in South Carolina at BMW use aluminum, which is produced in Quebec, which is the greenest aluminum in the world. That's an example of why our policies and the investment we've been driven is helping this economic security. When I said that to the governor, I must tell you should have seen, he even gave me his phone number. So that tells you about the relationship. When they see these things, they say, well, we are interdependent. We need to work together. We need to bring these investments together.
Wow, he got a phone number. He's pretty high up there, and he's bragging about a phone number that he got. There's a lot of things to unpack there, too. First of all, Quebec giving aluminum, the greenest aluminum. I often wonder with the aluminum, that is the easiest to pick out of the recycling bin. Do they just melt that down and just ship it out and get money? And then they make a story like this? Like, what if everything from Ontario gets shipped to Quebec in a processing plant, and they just put it into a big brick and ship it down there, and then they brag that they're very green energy involved. And also what he's saying too, if America does not have a consumer carbon tax, and Canada does, but Canada has all these professionals in Aerosmith, that sort of shocks me that he even would say that. I mean, is de Havilland still around? And with that being said, don't you think that the guy in Canada or the person in Canada, that they would look at that after and say, and America's doing much, much better. I don't have inflation. The house prices, the economy's doing better. Why wouldn't I just leave? Like, why would you stick in Canada? Because the talent's here. But then if the taxes are so high and inflation and affordability, they will all leave. Every one of them. Like, they don't even think about this. This is, was a fifth quintile guy. What does he make? $300,000 a year? Like, really, officially $300,000 a year. Like, it's really outrageous that he says that he cannot see the future of what is going to happen with all this, because they will do that. It'll be the brain drain. All there'll be left over is some minerals in Canada, and even then they'll worry about red tape and processing that is involved and lawyers that step in. And then Trudeau might, if he doesn't like it, he just might seize your bank account if you do anything. That's really what the fear is. And Vassie, she's doing an amazing job. I thought that other guy that was doing it. I know what his face looks like, but he went off to America. I thought no one could replace him because he was a tough guy. She's actually really good. She's getting a little bit more nitty gritty, which she should, and ask more questions. Maybe she's watching more videos and seeing what people are actually asking. Maybe they're not all dumb as what the CBC thinks. Maybe that's why she's asking tougher questions. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Best of goodbyes. Thanks for tuning in to Canada-Wide News. Hold up, before you dash off. A little birdie tells me many of you are ghosting around here without joining the subscriber crew. Given Trudeau's keen interest in making